Stroud specializes in the surgical treatment of sports injuries and orthopedic disorders of the shoulder and knee. He graduated #1 valedictorian at University of Oklahoma Medical School. Dr. Bond has been recognized as a top orthopedic surgeon by U.S. News and World Report. He received the Oklahoman Reader's Choice Award for Best Orthopedic Surgeon in 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018, and 2019. He was also named a top doctor by Oklahoma Magazine in 2017, 2018, and 2019.
Howdy! How are you all today? The best and the brightest of Oklahoma right here. I've been looking forward to this day for a while. My sister Jamie, she called and said, hey, how would you like to come up and talk to the best and the brightest here at OSSM? And I said, I've always wanted to be there and that sort of thing. My life story is nothing like your life story. And so I'll try to relate to you today. It may not work, but you'll see who I am and that sort of thing. I wasn't the best of the brightest. I don't know that anybody would have picked me out of my sophomore, junior year and said, hey, this guy's going to be something. But life has a way of really melding you into something. And so there's all kinds of things that are great in store for you if you will let life meld you into what you're destined to be. But the key is you've got to be able to live outside of your comfort zone because magic happens there. Now, I watch a lot of sports. You guys may not watch a lot of sports, but when you are in the hardest situation in life, you can't predict. You can go in a pregame and you can watch film and say, hey, this person's going to do that. They're going to use their right hand here. They're going to have a backhand here. This is what's going to happen when they get, really guarded closely. But when it gets in the game, it always goes differently than what you prepare. But the more you're prepared, the more you can adjust. And the more you put yourself in those situations that are difficult, the better you can perform when you don't know what's coming in next. And like I said on that video, that was very early in my career before any of you all were born in 2000. But I worked 7 years to get to that point. And what I'll do tomorrow in surgery, I've worked my whole life for that day, to be my best when you need me to be at my best. And I don't know what will happen in any surgery. What will happen with the bone? Will it break? Will somebody code? Will somebody have an MI after surgery? All of these things are so unpredictable and they happen new every day for me, 22 years out from doing this. But what you're able to do is be comfortable in an uncomfortable situation. And that's what I want you all to invite into your being and start to know that if I can become comfortable in uncomfortable situations, I can do magical things. All right? So, comfort zone, where the magic happens. We and you all want to be perfect, right? Have you ever made a B? Yes. Oh my God. What a loser. Put it right here. Loser. Right? Right? And that's what we hear everybody say. Because, man, we gotta be perfect. But what I want you to know is that you all have to fail and fail fast. Because if you live your whole life thinking and wanting to be perfect and expecting your life to be perfect, then when it's not, you will fold under the pressure. And that's not what we want, right? You need to fail, and you need to fail fast. And as soon as you fail, you need to assess what caused the failure, and then you need to make it right. Because that's what science is doing an experiment and looking at the results as objectively as you can and seeing what can I do with those results. Penicillin was an absolute failure, but somebody was able to look and say, hey, that killed that spot right there. I wonder if it could kill other things. X-rays, an absolute failure. but oh, I see an image based on these rays that are X-rays. And so I think maybe we could look inside somebody's body with that. So they failed, but they saw in that failure a potential of where they can be used. And that is the scientific method. That is what every one of you will use throughout the rest of your life. So invite failure, but that's easy to say and hard to live through. And that makes the difference as to whether or not your life will be something that you will look back on and be proud of, or think, boy, I regret that. And one thing you don't ever want to say in life is, I regret that. A lot of failures that I have, I do not regret, because they strengthened me. They made me who I am. And I'll tell you my story and show you that no one that's successful ever goes through life without several abrasions, cuts deep. But it's not what happens to you, it's how you respond to what happens to you. I read a book very early in my life about somebody who was captured in Vietnam. And I was in my PTSD rotation in medical school. And this guy was so sad because he had gone through basic training, got out in the war, and he was the radio guy. And the radio guy was supposed to radio in help whenever something happened. They were ambushed. He radioed for help. And then he looked around. The helicopters were there. He thinks everything's good. He gets on the plane. He leaves. Lots of people were left there. He got out. That was in 1969. In 1976, he was reading a Time magazine, and they were interviewing a guy who had been in Hanoi, which was a big concentration sort of camp for prisoners of war, for 6 years. And that was his buddy who he left there. And he was having trouble with that when we were interviewing him in our PTSD. But then I went on to read about this guy, and this guy didn't blame the other guy. He actually said that experience was great because it formed who I am. Now, in that experience, he was put in a bamboo box, and he didn't know when his next meal was going to be. And people urinated on him. That's what happened in that camp. And then they would trickle down some water, and he would try to just get the water, but they wouldn't feed him sometimes for 5, 6, 7 days. And so in a box, urinated on, probably defecated on, only having water every once in a while, and being fed every 5 to 6 days, this guy comes back and he says, that made me better. Because now I can speak to people about what possibilities humans can really get through. There are all kinds of books. Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. People who got through the Holocaust. People who went beyond what they thought that they could do in themselves because of adversity. And that's what I'm saying. You all don't fold when failure happens. Invite failure, invite adversity, and then get through it. Assess it and see how you can do better next time. All right. Now, the magic happens when you don't give way in the face of adversity. I'm going to tell you my story. I grew up in Stroud, Oklahoma. I was just an average dude who just played basketball. But I played all the sports, loved all the sports, didn't think about much, don't ever remember studying, don't ever remember bringing home a book. My mom was a teacher, and so she really wanted me to do well in life. And so she'd say, hey, go study and learn how to spell and that sort of thing. And I did okay with that, but I really liked sports. I went to my high school advisor, Coach Woody, and I said, hey, Coach Woody, what are you going to be, Jim? I said, I'm going to go play basketball in college. And he said, I don't know about that. And I said, I think I want to go to OU or OSU. And he said, people from Stroud, they ought to go to East Central or Tahlequah. I'm not for sure you're good enough for OU or OSU. What if your advisor told you that? I'm not for sure if you're good enough for Harvard. Don't even think about Duke and Yale. Oh my God. But you guys have great people around you. But that's kind of the way that I was raised. My geometry professor, whose name was Eldo Roddy, anybody named Eldo don't ever listen to, but I said, hey, I'm going to be somebody. And he said, I don't know. And so we had a bet. He said, there's no way you'll make all A's in college. I'll take you to Amarillo and give you a steak. And so I came back to him and said, I made all A's in college. And but that's the kind of people. You guys have a lot of people around here saying, you can be everything. Go after it. You're in a great spot. But one of the things that made me better is I had people say, you can't do it. I don't believe in you. I don't think you can do it. No, all A's for you. And what did that do to me? That made me think, I'm going to show Eldo Roddy. He's dead and gone now, but I haven't forgot his name. You know what I'm saying? And so when people look at me and say, I don't think you can do it, I'm like, oh, the heck I can't. So then I go to college. I meet that gal right back there. I went to a basketball practice, and the guys always were after the girls. And so, boy, I saw this girl, and she was jumping on the ball and ripping it out of somebody else's hands and taking it down and laying up, and she had the best legs on the court. And I was like, whoo, I got to meet her. And I did. She wanted nothing to do with me. She was like, James Bond, I bet he's a ladies' guy. I don't want any part of that guy. And so, that made me more intrigued. She doesn't want any part of me. I better chase her around. And I would try, we had little assemblies and chapels and things where we went to school, and she would go out and I'd try to be right there. Ooh, maybe I can bump into her, And so one thing led to another. And so just that adversity of her saying, I don't really think you're that cool, made me think I wanted to be around her even more. And then I saw who she was, and that's the best decision that I ever made. Who you pick for your significant other will be a huge determinant in whether or not you're happy or sad in life, because that's who you go in life with together. And so choose that very, very wisely. But that adversity of her not just saying, hey, Jim, I think you're great, made me want it more. I thrive in adversity. Then I got out, and the next thing that happened, my parents divorced, and my mom and my sisters, my mom coached my sisters in high school as a high school basketball coach. And I got a call, and my mom said, hey, Jim, I found a lump in my breast. And what does that mean? And she said, well, I'm going to have it taken out, so you have to come home from school. I played basketball, and so that year we couldn't play because I went home, and the surgeon came out, and I can remember like yesterday him saying, your mom has cancer. It's in 3 lymph nodes, and the prognosis is not great. And you just don't know what to think next. Here I have 2 sisters, one in 8th grade, one in a freshman, and Dad's not around. He's in prison. My dad, did some things that we could go into, but I don't really want to. But he's not around and not available. And, I'm a senior in college and want my own life to go somewhere. But here's another piece of adversity. So what do? Well, you get in with your sisters and you give your life to making sure that they're good and that they feel positive and that they can do things. And then that gal back there, who is my mom, she fights. She's 41 years old, and she says, I'm not going to let this get down. I got my fight from my mom because I saw her go through this. Chemotherapy, you go home. I was just like you guys, never taken care of anybody my whole life. Well, we show up in chemotherapy, and then we take her home, and the first thing she does is just throw up everything. And, your mom and dad take care of you, and you throw up all over them. But when it's the opposite way, you've never taken care of somebody like that. And then they're sick, and they can't get up, and they can't make you things. They can't do your laundry. They can't do anything for you. And you're like, and for 3 days, it is this silent in your house because you don't want to wake somebody up, and they're really ill. And you get through that, and after the first week, you get better and, hey, somebody's back to living again. And then they do it again in 3 weeks. And when you drive them up, you have to push them into the car and say, no, Mom, you're going because this is what they're saying you need to do. I'm not going to that. I'm dying. There is no way I'm going through that again. It's just too much. And so you push them into the car and you get them on your arm and you pull them in and you walk into the chemotherapy suite where they have about 6 or 8 chairs. And the second you walk in, what happens? Vomit all over everything. The smell of coming into that place makes somebody just nauseous because they've just gone through that. And so that's what happens over and over for 10 chemotherapy treatments. It changes your life. You don't know if your mom's going to live. You don't know what you're going to do with your sisters. You don't know what you're going to do with your life. Basketball, which was so important to you, all of a sudden becomes nothing because now real important things that are real hard are in your face. But that was the adversity I needed in my life. I just didn't know it. At that time, I was an English major. I loved it. I would, oh me, oh life, of these the thoughts recurring, of the endless trains of the faithless, of the cities filled with the foolish, of myself, ever reproaching myself, for who more foolish than I? The question, oh me, oh life, so sad recurring, what good among these am I? The answer, that life exists and identity, that the powerful play goes on, and you may contribute a verse. That's who I was in college. Somebody who loved Walt Whitman. Somebody who could recite. Yeah.
I love Walt Whitman.
There we go. So that's what I loved. And I thought, whoo, yeah, that gave me the willies too. But me seeing Dead Poets Society and all that stuff, I thought, man, that's going to be great. I'm gonna teach kids just like you, and we're gonna have a great life. But that experience of going through, I never took a science course in all of college. I thought, Dr. Sternad really helped my mom because we got through it, and then she didn't have cancer anymore, and then she's had another 35 years of life. She saw our children. She won state championships as a coach. She saw 11 grandchildren be born. All the things that she wouldn't have had if it weren't for technology and science and a caring doctor. And so that changed my life. I thought, I want to be a doctor. So I was teaching in college, teaching literature, and I thought, well, I'll go and do this. And I did similar things to what I just did. And then it changed. I was like, I really want to help people as a physician. And I had to take the courses of science leveling because I hadn't taken a course since high school of science or math. So it was hard. And I didn't know if I could do it. And then the people that I was teaching as freshmen, I would take those freshman courses with them. And guess what? They would beat me. They were smarter than I was as their teacher. Very humbling. But that adversity made me want it more. And so then I get through those science courses. I take 2 years, so I'm out about 3 or 4 years from college at that point. And I take the MCAT and I get an interview and I wow them with the interview. I talk about how great I'm going to be as a doctor. I'm going to set the world on fire. You want me in your program? And I thought it went pretty well. But you know what they said? What'd they say? No. You don't want me? I mean, I'm James Bond, right? But no. I got the letter, and I framed the letter, and I cried. Because here was 3 years of work, and I'd made A's, and I thought I was ready, but they didn't want me. And so that night, my wife, I'm like, oh, Sue, I'm never going to make it. I don't know why I even tried. It's just terrible. I shouldn't have done this. It's just a waste of time. And you know what my wife said? She said, it's time to be James Bond. That guy didn't quit. He didn't quit chasing after me. He didn't quit after his dreams. He shouldn't quit now. You go be you. And so I got back in the saddle and I took the MCAT again, took another year, a whole year of your life. And I went and interviewed with them. I said, hey, you learn from your mistakes. What do I need to do? Where do I need to strengthen myself? Where's my application weak? And they said a few things, and I went through a few things. And then the next year, they said yes. And then, by God, I was going to show them they missed out. And I worked my butt off in medical school. I wasn't the smartest medical student, but I worked hard. We had 3 kids. I stayed up. My day would start at 6 o'clock, do a little exercise, watch, go to class. We didn't have a lot of this online stuff. Come back home from class 4 or 5, spend as many quality hours I could with the family. My wife really, really was supportive in that she would give that time to the kids, and we would really have very little time, but we'd put them to bed, and at 8 o'clock when they went to bed, or 8:30, then I'd start to study from 8 or 9 till 2 or 2:30, and then do that same thing again, and do it every day for 4 years, so that I could show them and be the top and be able to do things. Well, I went to some oncology rotations, and the oncology rotations, again, were a lot of people who were very ill. And then those people that were ill were also dying. They weren't as lucky as my mom. And that really, I'm a sensitive person, and that really worked on me. And so therefore, I said, I can't do that. But I did a sports medicine rotation, and I loved it. My sports background and surgery and doing some of those sorts of things was great. What I would say is that after I got in and worked really hard, okay, then my life opened up. And you work for 4 or 5 years in anything you do, and nobody says, "Atta girl, you're doing good." They don't say that at all. They say, "Why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing that? You missed this lab. You missed that x-ray. You did this wrong. You did that wrong." I don't know why education is that way sometimes, but it is. Nobody's saying, "Hey, attaboy, you're really good," right? No, they're not saying that. They're saying all the mistakes. And so therefore, sometimes it beats you down. But that's when you have to have that voice inside of you that's telling yourself, "Attaboy, I'm good. I like myself. In fact, I love myself." Drink a big old cup of "I love myself" every morning. That's what you should do. Because people will try to take that away from you. And experiences will take that away from you. Life is hard, and it will not be easy. But you will have to have that voice that says you can do it. No matter if they tell you, "No, I don't want you a part of this medical school class. No, I don't think you're smart enough for that. I don't think you can get a 4.0. I don't think you can make it at this school." Don't let people define you. You define you. So, magic happens when you're not afraid to fail. I've failed a lot. If I could tell you all my failures, I failed yesterday in surgery. I fail almost every day in some way. But you have to get through it, and then you have to learn from it. My son's a golfer, and he hits it out 14 fairways, then 1 goes in the woods. But the next time, he can't think about the 1 in the woods. He's got to think about the 14 in the fairways. He's got to think about the next shot, because that's the only way you get through in life. If you're thinking about all the bad things that have happened to you, then you're going to be like a sponge, and you're going to soak up all the negative, and it's going to become so heavy in life that you're weighted down by water. Have you ever had water in your shoes? It's hard to make the next step, and you just soak it all up, and sponges don't move very well. You have to be like a duck, where water, the same amount of water that's on that sponge, runs right off that back. And they're able to negotiate through the waters and then get up and fly and do great. Same experience, same water, doesn't weight them down. You do have to learn from your mistakes though. If Roentgen, who discovered x-rays, did not look at what the mistake was and assess it and see why this was happening and how I can make it better or learn from it, it would have been something that saw him, but he never saw it. Does that make sense? You have to assess what you did wrong and then get better from it. So don't mistake that you will fail, but where do you go from here? It's not what happens to you, it's how you respond to what happens to you. Do you get back up in the saddle, or do you let that just fold for you? Do you soak up all the bad, or do you brush it off and go on to the next hole? That's the difference. Magic happens to you when you are pushed past your limits. In residency, I get in residency. I've never stayed up all night in my whole life. It's just not what happened for me. We didn't have YouTube. We didn't have getting these rabbit holes where you just watch things forever. 10 minutes. All right. I could talk all day, but we'll just talk for 10 more minutes. I did all of these types of things, but I never stayed up all night. Well, I get into residency and we're on hearts. And I have another gal who I'm sharing call with. And this other gal is really having a tough time. In fact, she's having so tough of a time that she decides, I can't deal with it. I'm gonna go home. So that turns my life into, I've got to take call every other night for 3 months. So my days would be getting up there at 4:30 and rounding, seeing patients, being in surgery, going through surgery, assessing them afterwards, pushing blood like you saw us pushing there, going to the ER, and then sometimes pushing blood into the night. And then whenever somebody was stable, whether it be 8 o'clock or 10 o'clock or 1 o'clock, then you would go home. You finish that day's work that day. But then if you're on call, you stay up all night. You checked out that person and you keep pushing blood because maybe they're needing 40 units and they're just bleeding internally, or maybe you have to take them back to surgery or whatever happens that night, and you have to stay up all that night. And then guess what? At 4:30 in the morning, you're going to round, and then you're going to present to your attendings, and then you're going to get in surgery, and you're going to do the same thing over again. Every other day for 3 months. Let me tell you, Michelle LaCroix is somebody I still have in my mind. It's like that person that, you invite to lunch and you're like, don't invite her back because she's not somebody that wants to take care of the bill, And so that's a friend that you just kind of stay away from. In my whole life, I'm still, that adversity of getting through it pushed me past my limits because I'm spending 120, 130 hours in the hospital a week. I didn't think I could do it. I literally was in tears at times thinking, I don't think I can do it. But all of those experiences then melded so that if I have a surgery late at night now, it's like, hey, that's no big deal. I've been through this. I can do it. I've got the infrastructure to make this happen, and I will take care of you when it happens. Does that make sense? So experiences meld you if you allow people to push you past your limits. You guys take loads that are like 24 hours a semester. They're hard. They make you want to sleep through things like this. But I want to tell you, that will strengthen you for the rest of your life. What you are being pushed here will allow you to do some of the things that are back there on that wall. You and you and you. You can do it. It will be hard. But anything worth anything in life is hard. It's always hard. To get on the television, you have to work all the time to get there. To be that day of the championship, that's your whole life of creating that skill to do it. To publish a paper, that's all this research. And then you have to go through all the edits and then to get it in the publication. Years of work, years of education. Nothing worth anything is easy. It will be hard, but you can do it. So push yourself past the limits. You have to take away the immediate pleasure. These phones and things that people have are just these dopamine clicks. Oh my God, look who's liking me. Oh, I have 45 likes. Oh, I have this, I have that. Oh, boy, I want to. Nobody can just sit here and listen to a lecture anymore, because if their mind wanders for a second, they got to be down at the phone. Oh, nobody can come to my office and wait and stare at the wall for 15 minutes. Oh, I got to be on the phone. It's just a constant, immediate pleasure that we need. But what I would challenge you all is to try to get away from that, because nothing easy is going to happen immediately. You will fail, and then you'll have to work hard. But hard work works. Okay? You got to surround yourself with the right people. My story for that is I graduated at the top of my class. I went out to fellowship. I was the number 1 fellow, got the resident award, got the fellowship award, came back, and I thought, I'm here to light this city up. I know how to do things nobody ever taught me in residency. I can do shoulder arthroscopy in a way nobody else can. It's amazing what I can do. And you know what? That was true. And then I worked really hard and had some good results, and then lots of people came to my clinic, and it's just overwhelming. And then one day, a gal named Sydney Schilling, I remember this name, she said, Dr. Bond, you're great, but you know what? Your staff is killing you. So I realized, oh my gosh, I'm seeing this person, and while they're under anesthesia, they don't even see me, and they might see me for 15 minutes in a clinic, but look at the person answering the phone. Are they like me? Look at the person coming to the front desk. Do they smile at them? Look at the person rooming them. And oh, what if I get busy in surgery and I have to have a PA that sees them? Is that person like me? So you have to surround yourself with great people to be better yourself. So now I take a team approach that Dr. Bond is much bigger than Jim Bond, because I have hand-picked people to answer the phone and to see them and say, hey, listen, what do you need? What's going on? To room them. PAs that say, hey, do you have surgery or not have surgery? I'm going to get an MRI and see this. And then we have nurses that are going to give you the IV and going to treat you so well. Then we have anesthetists that are going to put you under and then bring you back. And then we have people in the PACU that are going to smile at you as you wake up and make sure and take care of you if you have nausea or anything like that. So your experience that you attribute to Dr. Bond is 25 people besides Dr. Bond. If you're going to be great, you have to be able to work within a team and be on a team with people better than you. That's what will make you great. So find people just like what's at this school that are smarter than you and hang out with them. And figure out how I can be close to them and be friends with them and work with them, and you will be better yourself. The magic happens when you start complaining. Complaining doesn't do anything for anybody. If you don't have a solution, then get through it. When you have a solution or a potential solution, then talk about it. But just complaining about it, then make somebody else complain about it, and then all of a sudden you guys are just, in our hen house, there's a lot of cackling of these, hens, and people say that about, it's just like a hen house. Because complaining doesn't do anything for anybody. In fact, it just reinforces negative things in your mind. The negative, 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 negative. And let me tell you, between what's on the phone, what's on the media, what's on the news, there's enough negative. You don't have to feed that to yourself. So if there is a problem, try to find a solution, talk about that solution, see what's going on, but don't complain. Because complaining will not make you successful, and it won't usually change your situation. Does that make sense? All right, that's that, and here I am. I don't know if somebody wants to ask a question, but usually what I do is sing at the end of my surgeries, and the thing I wanted to leave people with is, whatever you do, what happened in my surgical, nobody sang in the operating room. I never saw that. But before I knew what YouTube was, in 2005, I did an ACL surgery on this girl, and she was in college at OU, and she went and loaded it to YouTube. I didn't know what YouTube was. I was still, I think, spelling it YouTube, but I didn't know how to get it. and somebody put it on and said, hey, there's 40,000 hits on you being the singing surgeon. And I was just singing between. And so then people would come and say, well, what, you don't like me? Why don't you sing to me? So I started singing songs, and so it, we sang silly songs like red, yellow, green, red, blue, 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 red, purple, green, yellow, orange, red, 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 yellow, green, red, blue, 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 red, purple, green, yellow, orange, red. Blend them up in what have you got? Celery, chateaus, and aqua, Malvasian, ultramarine, every color in between. And then, and then we got into, I like big cuffs and I cannot lie. Yo, other brothers can't deny. A patient walks in with a frown up on the face and the shoulder up in a brace. Their cuff sprung. Gonna sew up tough because I know that spur was rough. Deep in the shoulder it's tearing because the hook and the cap stuff staring. Oh, baby, I just want to fix ya and then take a picture. My homeboys tried to warn me that this rap was corny, but no, with Regenadin, we want to cuff that men's, so use me on a Friday or a Tuesday. I'll sing and dance then, tech with romances, my niche to stitch. I can sew it like a boss-ass bitch. I cry the and don't got started a thing. Take the average doc and you ask him that, and he'll say, scoping is king. So fellas, yeah. Have you torn your cuff? Hell yeah. Probably shouldn't say that, but I'll save it. I'll shave it. I'll serve that a healthy cuff. I'll sew it right back, because Bondo sews it back. My anesthesia don't want none unless your cuff's torn, hun. So what I want you to know is that you have to bring you to what you do, because you can't fake that. I sang in church, we sang at the house, we were singing between cases, and so then I started singing to patients, and patients loved it. So whatever you do, bring that to what you do. It will be authentic, it will be genuine, people will follow it, and people will love it. And it's easy to do because that's who you are. All right? If you like country, I'll leave you with this one. They call me the shoulder man. That's my name. Fixing these cuffs all over town, baby, that's my game. Hell, everybody seems in need of what I got. I can tie them down with those sliding knots, because I'm the shoulder man. That's my name. Questions?
Oh yeah, that's up for questions.
Okay. We have time for one or two questions.
What if you fail administrative surgery?
Oh, when you put down the stem, sometimes you put it down a little bit too hard and it can crack the bone. So I had to go and then pull that out and put cerclage wires around so that then the stem would stick. And so that happens. And sometimes you don't know exactly what to do. And in those days, you might have to go out and talk to the family and be very uncomfortable. Say, I'm going to have to go read about this and figure it out, and we'll bring her back next week and we'll try it again. I'll tell you one other story very quickly. One time I was putting on a tibia. Guy was broken here. It was a big MTV accident. And so I brought it on, and then he came back to clinic, and he kind of walked like this. I was like, man, I put that on sideways. And I was like, oof. And I think everybody noticed it, but I said, I think I put that on sideways. Because it's not easy. It's not like a puzzle piece and that sort of thing. And I was early in my career, and I was like, oh, should I tell him, should I not? So I brought it up, and because it's hard to say that you're a failure, that you didn't do it right. And so I did. And then I said, but I'm going to take you back to surgery. I'm going to try to put it on straight. I don't know if I can, because I didn't the first time. And I did. And then I thought that person would sue me or say, that you're not good, and tell everybody they had to do 2 surgeries. That person sent me 11 people because I was honest and I did it right, even if it didn't get right, wasn't right the first time. All right? So you're going to fail. Don't expect perfection, but try your best. And then if you don't get it, do it right the next time. Yeah.
What was the silliest or most obscure case you had?
Woo. The silliest or most obscure?
Yeah.
I would say that the case you saw here was really, really tough. There was also a case when I was doing a lot of trauma where somebody was riding a pump jack. I don't know if you guys know what pump jacks are, but they go back and forth in an oil rig where they pump oil out of the ground. And so somebody decided, I'm going to be a cowboy and get up on there and ride it. And they fell through and the mechanism got their leg. And so then they couldn't get out. So we had to go onto the oil rig site and we had to amputate his leg to get him out. And then we did that amputation on site and then flew him back to the hospital to try to save his life. And it worked. But I'd say that's not something you want to do at home or on the oil rig site. Don't jump on oil rigs because that can be really a problematic thing. But those are two of the, kind of unique things. But I've had all kinds of things happen that we can't speak of probably in proper company. But those are two amazing things. Is that it?
Yep. All
Okay.
right, let's thank Dr. Bond one more time.